This is the Female Founder Show with host and entrepreneur Bridget Fitzpatrick, exclusively on ASBN.
Hello everyone. Today on the Female Founder Show, I'm thrilled to sit down with Betsy Fore, an entrepreneur, investor, and change maker who's making history while paving the way for others. Betsy is best known for being the first Native American woman to raise Series A funding, and she's the founder of Tiny Beginnings and co-founder of Natives Rising. This is an organization helping Indigenous women pursue careers in tech and entrepreneurship. Now, from developing award-winning products to partnering with Michelle Obama's Veggies Early and Often initiative, Betsy has built companies that not only succeed in business, but make a real difference in people's lives. Her story is one of resilience, purpose, and using success to lift others up. We'll talk about her early career, the determination behind fundraising, what she's learned about leadership, and how she continues to create impact through her ventures and her new book, Built on Purpose. Betsy, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm so excited today.
Good. Now, I would love to talk about your early career. Can you talk to us about what you were doing even before you became a founder?
Definitely. I can take you way back. I was the first person in my family to go to college. I became an industrial designer because I grew up in the tinkering in the garage with my dad, building motorcycles. He's a motocross racer. And I thought, oh my goodness, I could invent toys for a living. Like this seems like a dream, right? Never having to grow up, that kind of childlike wonder. And I invented toys for George Lucas from the Star Wars franchise, for Mattel with Barbie, Polly Pocket, WWE, Hasbro Games. I mean, it was just an absolute dream. And I thought, it doesn't get better than this. But then after every point in my career trajectory, it's always gotten better on the other side as well. But I think that's kind of the gift that keeps on giving, is that spirit of gratitude, right? And the idea that you can approach each new idea or thing that you're tackling with that same level of enthusiasm, even when it doesn't work out. Because I believe every success, you're on a mountain of failures, actually. But it's usually the success is what everyone sees when really it's all the things that, it took to kind of get you there. So yeah, after graduation, I became a toy inventor in Chicago in the West Loop. It was the first city I ever visited as a teenager, and I'm actually back there full circle after spending over a decade in New York and London. I had heard about someone who was building kind of the next Pokemon of the UK at the time, called Moshi Monsters. His name's Michael Acton Smith. Everyone knows who he is now because he was the founder of Calm, the meditation app. But previous to that, he had several companies, and one of them I actually flew out and helped him to build. I flew out to London not knowing anyone, and I walked in the door to our old offices in Battersea, asking to meet with Michael with this massive portfolio in hand and these foam core mock-ups that I had made based on his digital characters online. And I said to him, I could build this into a physical franchise. I mean, by the fifth time, I was actually able to meet him face to face because I kept coming in thinking, why not me, right? I'll just walk in and give it a go. I later found out that British people don't normally do that. You need to have an appointment. I guess Americans, think that as well, right? You need to definitely, have these scheduled in advance. And for me, it was just like, why not me? And I just kept walking in. And then finally, when we did meet, we chatted for over 2 hours. He brought me on to lead all of product at the company, which we grew to over 90 million registered users online, over 300 people in-house. And I was able to, lead all of product there. It was just an absolute dream. We beat even Lego and Star Wars for the physical product side during those years as the #1 toy brand in all of UK. And so so even this leads me up to this point of founding my first company, because I saw Michael do it as the sole founder CEO at Mind Candy. I thought, maybe I could give this a go too, because I had a problem I was really looking to solve. My dog at the time, who's now 14 years old, he was 1 year old then, in the UK, was a little overweight. And I thought, I've tried everything to get him to lose the weight. I've got a Fitbit for myself. Why don't I have one for my dog Whiskey? And so I built on a hackathon one weekend in Shoreditch, London, the first Fitbit for dogs. There wasn't one on the market yet, or I would have bought it for him, right? And so I launched that, and I left Mind Candy as Michael was leaving to found Calm. to build this full time. And I actually launched it at Harrods in London at the Penthouse, had celebrities using the bow tie, launched it in Colette for Paris Fashion Week, and then came over to every Best Buy in North America, every Petco on InCap, launching the pet tech category, Oprah's favorite things list, Forbes 30 under 30. It was just like a magical first time founder CEO journey that I'm sure we're going to get into in a minute. But it was like, yeah, it took a long time coming, getting there, right? Because everything builds on itself.
Yeah. And it sounds like you had that why not me attitude the entire through when you're working with Michael and then when you're working with this first company. I think
Yes.
that's so important and probably has a lot to do with your early success, right?
Yes. I think, my parents taught me growing up that if I could dream it, I could build it. And they actually showed me what that looked like. I think, I grew up between the middle of the countryside in Illinois and my reservation in North Dakota. I'm Turtle Mountain, Chippewa on the Canadian border there. And so I grew up seeing my uncle own Azure's Auto Body on the res and believing, wow, he started his own business, charted the course for his family and made a life for himself. Maybe I could too, right? But I didn't see examples of like tech founders or native founders or even many women founders, right? As I was going out and starting this journey. So every step of the way, I just never even really thought about that. I just kept asking, why not me? And what do I have to lose? Which was one of the greatest blessings of my life, actually, is that I feel because I came from a background where, I could be underestimated and have been many times. That's actually been one of the greatest blessings because I'm able to, really continue to say I have nothing to lose, right? And let's go for it and let's figure it out. And I think that if we all look deep within ourselves, we actually all have that opportunity every day, right? To do something that scares us and to say, yeah, why not me?
Yeah. So that company was on Oprah's Favorite Things and all of these others. Talk to us about that a little bit. Is that, were you bootstrapping that company at the time, or was that one that you had raised for?
Yes, I did wind up raising capital for it. However, in the earliest days, I didn't have a friends and family around. So even though I built this massive success at Mind Candy with Michael at the time, I hadn't ever raised venture capital or even angel funding. And so I didn't know what that looked like. And when I was trying to raise in London, it was hardware was a brand new category and pet tech did not exist yet in the early 2010s. So it was extremely difficult. Yeah. And then when I looked into the US market, there were more things happening in hardware, of course, at the time. However, I just looked into grant opportunities because I was like, I don't have a network. I don't really know where to start. And I applied to grants. I wound up getting one in St. Louis, an Arch grant that brought me back to the US. It was a 50K grant, and I'll never forget it because it led me to raising tens of millions of dollars years later, as these things do, where it's like that one small spark, right, can turn into the flame, like the bigger thing that you can't even imagine at the time. But I just remember feeling so much gratitude for that 50K check because my judges were Maxine Clark, CEO and founder of Build-A-Bear, and Jim McKelvey, the CEO of Square with Jack Dorsey at the time. And I just remember thinking, because they then came on as angels and shared it with their networks and became a snowball effect where I raised millions in angel investment for that company. But I had multi-millions in POs that I needed purchase orders to deliver on, right, to these massive retailers. So many learnings building my first company, WonderWoof, and I did it completely the opposite with my second company, Tiny Organics.
Okay, so I would love to talk about that. First, what was the exit like with WonderWoof and then the transition into the next company?
Yes. So with WonderWoof, it had gotten to a point where we had been approached for acquisition, and went down that road for about 2 years. And I got to a point where I said, I'm really ready. Like we did sell the company. It was not, the device does not exist today. It was more for the data, and I remained on the board of that pet company at the time. But I was also pregnant at the time with my first son, Sebastian. And I thought, what's the greatest gift I could give him outside of my love? It's probably a love of vegetables from the very first bites, because I grew up on a sugar roller coaster, and like many people in my family, had issues with diabetes and, heart disease and things that you see on, especially in on the reservations and within Native communities. But I think in America at large, right, I thought, how could I combat this to really rewire the gut health of a generation to prefer vegetables as opposed to sugar for their comfort food? Now, this might seem really wild. Like, how did I go from, building in the hardware and the tech space, right? And then into baby food. I mean, I still don't know about making food, right? Like I had to learn it all as I went. But I think the thing there that was kind of the magic or the secret sauce is it's all about who you bring around the table. And because I had raised angel for so long with WonderWoof from angel investors, I didn't have the valuation validated from a venture capitalist to then raise VC funding. So I did the exact opposite way with Tiny Organics, where I interviewed for different entrepreneur in residence roles. I was interviewing different firms throughout New York City where I was based at the time. And I wound up selecting one that I then moved forward with to build out the 100 founding families, as I call them. And there really are 100 first believers at Tiny. So I sent one email to the Park Slope parent group where I was based at the time. We got hundreds of inbounds. I had to cap it within 2 hours to just meet the need of the 100 founding families that were joining us. We created these recipes, the 12 hero products. This was, of course, pre-pandemic, but parents were meeting us out in the park, myself and my founding team, to deliver these foods to their baby, and we were watching them eat and like getting the feedback firsthand. It was pretty wild to experience because I was 8 months pregnant at the time, so I think they probably trusted us. But these were like unmarked cups. This wasn't like a fully fledged company yet, and yet that's where we started and grew to then 10,000s and then beyond and beyond, right, to where I grew the company on direct sales alone to over 13 million in revenue in the first 24 months. I then went on to be the first Native American to ever raise a Series A round of funding for that company, which made me realize I needed to give back, right, and figure out how to get more Native founders around the table and funded. So I founded my nonprofit after that.
Congrats to that. That is so huge. Very groundbreaking for sure. And Tiny Organics is the company you were talking about. And you partnered with Michelle Obama's Veggies Early and Often effort. Can you talk to us about what that partnership actually meant for the business?
Absolutely. So I talk about it in my book because I believe that founders are the ultimate manifestors, where we build something out of nothing, and this like deep belief. And I remember manifesting and thinking about how my ultimate wish list dream partner for Tiny Organics would be the former First Lady, because she had founded Veggies Early and Often in the White House a decade prior to this. And that year, I didn't know it yet, but at the Food Navigator conference where I was speaking in Chicago that year, her team was there thinking about creating a board for Veggies Early and Often with founding companies that were doing this work in the childhood development space. And so they reached out to me. And so just by me putting that energy out there into the universe, I believe, it allowed it to come to me. And by partnering with her, we were meant to be on stage together in March 2020. But of course, that went virtual, right? Yeah. But I think just having that ringing endorsement of, here we've partnered to create, to really rewire the gut health of a generation to prefer whole, real vegetables in particular, that made it where it was literally as we launched, we had that partnership. And I think part of the reason they were so aware of us already was because my first advisor I had brought on was Dariush Masafarian, the dean of Tufts School of Nutrition and Policy. And we had created an innovation council there, but he was helping me to understand what ingredients baby needed when during each phase of development as we were building that company. So I think when you're building your company from the jump, to have those strategic advisors within different buckets, so like marketing, product, social impact, right? For me, this was food science, right? So depending on your industry, I think that they're the ones that have actually always gotten me there, right? And I've done the same thing with my venture capital for my launch now, where we have about a dozen advisors for each of our verticals that we invest in.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a little bit. I mean, you went from grassroots research with Tiny Organics, and then massive success and partnerships with people like Michelle Obama, and then you exited that company, and now you're now you're helping people with all of the experience and all that you've been through with these companies. It's unbelievable. Can you talk
Yes.
to us about that?
Yes, definitely. And so I think, as you go through the founder journey, and I think just as you go through life, you realize I've built this thing, I've created it out of a deep love and conviction that I had, but I am not the thing, right? I put it into the universe, or the way I describe it is I paint the picture on the canvas. And at that point, I allow others to enjoy it, and I can actually step away, right? If that's the thing that's going to create the greatest ripple of impact, right? And how I believe I could be able to give back in this one life. And so for myself, it was remaining on the board of Tiny, whilst going off to develop Natives Rising, the largest community of Native founders and technologists. Our members represent over 100 tribes nationwide. And this is the legacy work for me, because all the skills that I had learned building companies over the past almost 2 decades, I wanted to figure out how to use for the good of Indian country, and for, to allow access and generational wealth for the very first time within our communities. And so I did that through starting to invest about 6 years ago through two different funds: X Factor Ventures, which is part of Flybridge in Boston, where we've backed over 100 female-led seed rounds in the nation. There's 23 of us partners that are female Series A and beyond founders ourselves. So I do my deals with one of our partners, Kate from Maven, who's multi-time unicorn, right, building that
Yeah.
company. The healthcare deals I do are with her, or I'll work with the founders of Figs, who have IPO'd, right, another great partner that we have on board. And it's these incredible women coming around saying, we're going to fund other women, right? And we've actually seen over 3% of every female-led seed round. We've backed over 3%. We've seen over 10% of everyone in the nation. So that's also just incredible network
Yeah.
access that we have, and ability to really help, having lived that life as a founder prior. And it allowed me to create a track record where, when I moved from New York to Chicago, I joined a firm called Long Jump Ventures, where we've written the most pre-seed checks into underrepresented founders in the Chicago area. And that's also been just a labor of love, but it's allowed me to have a track record of over 40 deals before I ever
Nice.
launched Velveteen Ventures. And at Velveteen, we're investing in children and planet for the next 7 generations. My partner, Carla Brolier, and I are the first two Native women to launch our own venture capital fund. Her background is phenomenal. She's a unicorn when it comes to the climate space. She grew up in rural Alaska watching the permafrost melt firsthand, then dedicated her entire life to fighting climate change. She set up 7 climate funds, most recently for Yvon Chouinard to Patagonia. She built the Purpose Trust and then the Home Planet Fund for him, deploying to indigenous tribes worldwide. And so when she came over to join forces, we had already worked together previously, building a nonprofit called Native Women Asset Managers. And there's about a dozen of us in Canada and the US, and just all coming to support one another. But I think when we merged our two worlds that are really so intrinsically linked, right? Myself really building in the children's space for so many years, and wanting to invest in companies that I could really be hands-on and help with in that way. And then, of course, we need our children to inherit a thriving planet, right? So that's the idea behind the fund itself. We're not an impact fund, we're a proper venture capital fund, because we plan on making massive returns for our LPs and for our community.
You should be so proud of yourself, and I'm sure your family is
Thank
extremely
you.
proud. Now, for founders from those underrepresented communities, what's one piece of advice that you would give them when they're looking for that investor attention?
Yeah, I think what I would do earliest days, is what I actually went out and did, which is try to find like-minded communities that can support, even if it's not with dollars. Initially, you can get access to the networks, and there's so many more that exist now than when I got my start. I think that grants can be a great avenue for founders, and there's always startup pitches happening. It seems like every week, right, across the nation as well. So that's a great way to get out there, get feedback about your pitch, and build out that network. I think when you don't come from the background where you'd have that kind of access to capital, putting yourself out there saying, what do I have to lose, why not me, I think just having that positive spirit and the reframe around everything that you have to offer to the world will allow you to approach it from that spirit of reciprocity, that spirit of I have a lot to give here, right? And I talk about this quite a bit in my book because I interview 26 different founders. Some of them have IPO'd, some are unicorns, but over half are women and a third are Native American. And I would say majority came from backgrounds where they did not have this access. So their stories are just incredibly inspiring to understand how do I do that? How did they do that? Right. And it's coming out next week, 11/11. So excited. I have a copy right here, one of the very
Love it.
first editions with HarperCollins Business. So yeah, it's been a labor of love over 5 years in the making, creating this book. So just such a joy to bring it to life.
I cannot wait to read it. Now, we talked about this before we started recording, how important everything that you've been through has been now dumped into this book. And I know you talk about your inner why in the book.
Yes.
Can you talk to us what that means?
Yes. So this was the thing that I didn't know what it was called really, but I always knew it was there. It's actually the thread of our values that are weaved into everything that we do in life. So it's a process that I take my founders through, that I invest in, and that I've taken myself through for years now, where I studied NLP, so became a neurolinguistics practitioner. It means like rewiring your brain and to get out of the negative loop and into the positive, and why something will work versus the opposite. And what I do is apply that art of neuroscience to the reframe around how can we incorporate our values, right, that are intrinsic to us. I have a list of about 50 values that I have in the book as part of the workshopping, and 7 of those are the 7 grandfather teachings of my tribe, the Anishinaabe as well. And so I think about things like love, humility, bravery, right? Like how when you think about these values and what you really hold in the highest regard, it's not just about pondering, oh, that's nice to have, right? Yes, we all have values. It's about actually applying them. And the way you do that is through neuroscience. And it's through the processes that I share in the book where you feel and you embody the values. And it's that energy that you live by that then permeates into everything that you do. And so one of my favorite exercises I talk about in the book is anchoring, which is so simple and anyone can do it at any moment. It's putting your thumb and forefinger together, and it takes about 3 minutes to implement it into your wiring, and then have it fire when you need it most. So essentially it's bringing you back to a time when you really embodied whatever you're trying to value or feel, right? Is that confidence? Is that love? Is that is that courage? And to really visualize and take that moment to remember every detail when you felt courageous, when you felt brave, right? And it can just be one moment. I'm sure there's many, many moments throughout your life, but to be able to just call on that one moment and feel the feeling, because what I learned through the process was that you have to feel it to reveal it. You really have to embody the values, right? That you're saying these are my highest, things that I hold in my heart and in my life. I think when you can live within that energy, and really the energy of abundance, right, versus scarcity, that's when the universe and everything around you just winds up. We all have those founders in our life, or builders, or people, right? That it feels like, how is are these good things just happening to them and everything's flowing to them? It's that energy that they put out into the world. Like it's so, and when you understand it and you see it, it seems so obvious. And yet, within the way that I was raised, and I think many underrepresented founders as well, is trying to take your mindset from a scarcity to an abundance mindset, right? And that's really what the core of the book is about. So if you're looking for kind of the spiritual journey meets the nuts and bolts of building a successful business, that's built on purpose. That's the book itself. So the deep inner why is that through line, but it's really about embodying these values. And I take you through the different processes and really the heart and the healing work to get there.
Okay, I love this. I'm so into this, by the way. And I've seen a lot of videos and I've read books on, but I love how you say incorporate the values. I don't think I've seen that angle, as well as the doing something physical by putting your thumb and your forefinger together. Along with that, I think that makes so much sense. And it does.
It does.
Yeah, it takes you back to a center space. So,
Right, right. Because the most important relationship we can have are not with our customers, not with our co-founders, not even with our investors, right? It's with ourselves.
yeah,
And so if we can have those moments of, wait a minute, I'm here, right? It's about my values, what I'm bringing to the table, and honestly, just showing yourself the love and compassion that you so freely give to others, right? I
yeah,
think that's when you have this sort of unlock because the where your attention goes, energy flows.
yes,
So if we're placing our attention on what we do want and the positive outcomes, right? That is what we will wind up manifesting or bringing to ourselves, as opposed to, kind of the negative cycle that we've all sort of experienced over the years, where it almost feels like it's becoming like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, oh, these, you can literally flip it like a switch if every time you try to reframe from the negative loop to that abundance or that thing, focusing on that thing that you want, right, and putting your attention there, because really it's about how do you want to feel, right?
yeah,
If you embody that feeling now, you will feel it. You will become that feeling, right? And those values. And so I've seen it happen with myself, with my founders, with the women we work with at our healing retreats through my nonprofit. And it's the work of a lifetime. It's the work that, in my mind, is the most. It's the most important of all because it's the work, it's the healing work that you do within your own heart and mind, right? To
yeah.
be able to bring your greatest self or your greatest idea and the spirit of abundance to the world, right? To be able to give your gift to others.
Yes. And so many people achieve the success that you have and beyond, and then they still don't feel at peace or happy inside. So it definitely
Mm,
does, it starts with you. I love how you
yeah.
said that. So it makes so much sense.
Yes, definitely. No, I think that's true. Actually, when I was growing up, I remember thinking that the people I looked around and I thought they have the most, a lot of times were the unhappiest. And I was
Mhm.
like, I remember asking my parents about this, like, why is that? And it didn't make sense to me. But look, they have so much, right? Well, they might have had material possessions, but as we all know, it's like the heart work, right? That's
Yeah.
that's that's true wealth is
Yes.
the calm nervous system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, do you have any non-negotiables in your daily routine that you have to do every day? Because I know it sounds like we're both into the, just basically getting our mindset straight, probably especially in the morning. But do you have
Yes.
anything like that you have to make sure you
Yes.
get done?
So, given my work with Calm over the years, and Michael is featured heavily in the book, I do just have to say the 10 minutes of Calm is life changing. And so, Tamara, who does the leads the meditations there, it's just so good and calming and really brings you into that space. But also, I don't necessarily have the 10 minutes every morning. Like, for instance, this morning I
Yeah.
had to get all three kids out the door, and everyone's under the age of 7. And so I didn't, that was like not an option to do the 10 minutes of calm before we had this meeting. And so I think even just the 1 minute of intentional breathing. So the book Breathe is incredible if you haven't read that, but it talks about the science of it and why. And we've known this for years, right? But like with meditation, linking it to breath, I think when you can actually breathe deeply, and I talk about breath work within the book, it just resets your nervous system. It just makes you feel, yeah, more alive and at ease. And even just giving it that 1 minute of focused breath, it really does make a tremendous difference.
Yes. I think that's probably a good place to start. What advice would you give to those that are, on this, they want to manifest, they want to start living a more peaceful, happy, internal life? What advice would you give to those that haven't practiced any of this? I mean, I know you have for a long time, I have a little bit, but getting started
Yeah.
might be, somebody might not know exactly what to do, obviously meditation, but what would you say to that?
Yes, I would definitely say looking through your value system, what we talked about before here, around what makes me unique, what is it that
Yeah.
I want, and what do I value and bring to the world. I think when you can focus on your inner workings first, it's really exciting, that journey of like uncovering and discovering, because I think those things kind of ebb and flow throughout your life. What you valued when you were 20 might be different, today. And so what are those values, and how does that look for you? It's something that yeah, it's almost like a new relationship, or it's something that's like feels really thrilling, right? To get to look into. And so I think just even that curiosity around digging deeper in terms of what you want and what you value, to start there. And then it's that curiosity that will kind of carry you through saying, okay, let me do the heart coherence work. So when I say that, it's like actually timing your breath, with your heart rate. And there's different monitors that are out there that can help with this, but that's something that can also be a game changer earlier on. If you even just look up, where to purchase those, they're on Amazon and kind of all over, but you can, it will let you know if your breathing is in coherence with your heart. And I think it starts with the heart and being heart centered, because a lot of times, especially as founders or CEOs or builders, you're in your head so much. I realized I woke up one day and said, I've just lived in my head the past
Yeah.
decade, right? Trying to put out these fires for the business, trying to build it in such a way. And it's like, you don't want to look up one day and think like, but where did it all go, right?
Yeah.
Like we need to really focus on what matters, and that is coming back to our values and what we really care and cherish in our own hearts and minds. And so I think when you can bring it down from the head to the heart, right? Then you can really lead with that. And I would say practically that means some of the things we've talked about already around, the mindfulness and the breath, but really the heart coherence, will help center you. And then honestly, what I would do is just get my hands on any book I could or any podcast, right? It sounds like you've done as well,
Hmm.
where you can find some of these, sort of tips and tricks, or other ways to reset and reframe, because I found that life in general is all about the reframe, right?
Hmm.
Because there will be failure, there will be so many hard things that happen to us, but if we can reframe it that it's actually all working out for our greatest good, and really believe that and live with that intention, like rejection is protection, for instance, right? This mindset of everything is happening for me, like when you can embody that energy, you will just be amazed at the love and the light that can come into your life. And so, really, it is about the rewiring. It's about the reframe. And I hope that I can give the gift of this book to many people to be able to do the work and to understand how to get there.
Yes. So talk to us. You said November 11th it comes out.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
great. Great. We'll make sure we have all the information here as well for people to
Yes, it'll
order the
be at
book.
every major retailer, and 1111 is an angel number. So I was so thrilled. I think it was meant to be that we got this launch date.
It
But
really
we'll be
was.
doing, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we'll be doing events, all around, yeah, the nation. So, I'm in SF this week, LA, and then Miami next week, and then of course the launch days in New York, and back here in Chicago. So if you look up Built on Purpose, you can probably find some of those events if you're keen to join. And, yeah, I would just love to be able to gift this to as many founders and builders as possible, so that, they can begin to do the hard work as well as the head work of the build, right?
Yes.
But to really focus on what matters.
Well, thank you for doing that for us. I can't wait to read it. Very excited. So thank you so much for all the time that you've given us, and congratulations on your massive success and the new book. Cannot wait to read it. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
This is the Female Founder Show with host and entrepreneur Bridget Fitzpatrick, exclusively on ASBN. If you're a female founder and would like to help other female founders with your inspiring story, we would love to hear from you.